Hello everyone, my name is Mansi Thakur. As most of you know, I'm the senior lead for SGRC, the security team. I would like to first thank you for your time. I understand how busy we are with the PCI DSS assessment and the newly implemented tokenization. So without further delay, let's start this presentation on cyber threat intelligence. Just last year, the interweb suffered the largest attack in history. Brian Krebs from KrebsOnSecurity.com is a well-known and respected journalist in the industry. He's known to research and reveal timely and difficult news that range from vendors to events to vulnerabilities. On September 20th of last year, the attack was directed to his website through a distributed denial of service, also known as DDoS. The botnets that were used for this attack were common devices such as routers, surveillance cameras, and other common IoTs. This malicious software is infamously known as Mirai. Another example of how a cyber attack ruined not only the consumers of a single country, rather economies of multiple countries were on the verge of ruin. This global ransomware affected companies such as WPP, a British advertising agency, to airports in Ukraine, to nuclear power plants in Russia. Known as Petya, this originated in Ukraine. It spread to 64 countries within the span of just a few months. It's no wonder, really, that ransomware is one of the most popular methods of cyber attacks these days, as a South Korean firm recently paid $1 million in order to retrieve its data. Let's focus on our company, MUSA Inc. It's at currently a vulnerable time right now, where many of our resources and stakes are on hold with the development of our new series. As you may have heard, this new series of manufacturing processes are expected to increase our revenue by 20 to 30%. That is the highest projected increase on any one line of product. With great power, however, comes great responsibility. Daily, there are multiple threats to our sensitive data. As we're just finishing up a contract with the Chinese government, our reputation is at stake not only nationally, but also in the international waters. Creating a holistic cyber threat intelligence plan is key to keep afloat during such treacherous times. The landscape and perimeter of information security is constantly changing. The perception, as illustrated in the comic on the left, is that cyber threat intelligence, or CTI, doesn't really have much to offer. The reality couldn't be farther than this. The industry-accepted definition of CTI is that it's knowledge about adversaries, their motivations, intentions, and methods that is collected, analyzed, and disseminated in ways that help security and business staff at all levels protect the critical aspects of their company. The key features essentially include learning. This phase is to ensure that the information is sorted and processed. The second feature is anticipating. This phase is to ensure that the information is evaluated and interpreted by educated and trained representatives. The third and final feature is preparing. This phase is to ensure that the information is accurate, timely, and actionable. There are 3 steps to create this risk-based plan. The first, threat actors were explored. In our second, objectives were identified. And third, attack methodologies were categorized. We will now be going into these 3 steps in more detail. Out of the 5 categories of threat actors, namely cybercriminals, insider threats, nature attacks, state-sponsored attackers, and hacktivists, only 3 are shown here. State-sponsored attackers and hacktivists present a lower risk to the company compared to the other 3. So, cybercriminals are usually motivated by money, and they're a prime example of a high-risk threat actor. The company is at the forefront of biotechnology, so its proprietary secrets could be valuable to both direct and indirect competitors. Our sources indicate that the attacker, who goes by the name Infomaniac, has successfully finished yet another attack. This criminal has a history of acquiring network credentials through phishing campaigns. The second type of threat actors that we're going to be discussing are insider threats, and they're not just limited to employees with malicious intent, rather also include untrained and unaware workers. Over 35% of our employees fell victim to an internal phishing expedition just last month. The company's training attempts thus far have been mainly directed to proving PCI DSS compliance. However, no real effort has been made to engage with the employees regularly. The third type of attacks are nature attacks, and though they cannot be stopped, they're still included in this report. The company does not have a sustainable business continuity plan which looks into disaster recovery. Though San Diego is known for its sun and fun, and it's not prone to extreme incidences, there have been reports of major power outages and wildfires near the office location. This is by far having the highest risk rating, as there are currently no mitigation techniques or backups in place. Now that we've covered the different types of actors, let's look into their methodologies. Phishing campaigns are a popular attack method as they are low on effort and potentially high on impact. Our mitigation techniques currently include email filtering, authentication systems, and regular internal phishing expeditions in order to educate the users and increase awareness. The second methodology is social engineering, which is a term that is cast quite broadly. This is a popular methodology as it's sometimes more optimal to fool a user than it is to crack a system. It commonly includes spoofing, though it's not required. Our mitigation techniques include having a monitoring system and team who stop and report any potential actions, such as piggybacking. The third methodology are power outages and other type of nature attacks, which are a serious issue to the company, as like I mentioned previously, we have no backup plan currently implemented. The company has in the past faced repercussions. However, now with our exponential size growth, some of the flexibility that we previously had is lost. This chart gives an overview of what we have just discussed. Again, to highlight the key 3 threat actors we're directing our attention to are cybercriminals, insider threats, and nature, as they pose the highest risk to the company. Our mitigation recommendations for the 3 high-risk threats in the previous slide are the following. First is to create an incident response plan that includes DDoS mitigation. This would include adding load balancers to divert traffic over multiple servers, identifying and communicating with the internet service provider when the service seems slow, and implementing a cloud-based anti-DDoS filter. The incident response plan would also include a ransomware mitigation plan. This would include a holistic approach on patching systems. Currently, we're only considered with updating our systems to prove PCI DSS compliancy. However, we would need to take a more aggressive approach for this mitigation plan. The second, encrypt and backup data. This would link to the business continuity management and disaster recovery plan that I mentioned earlier. As the company is small enough, the cost to design, implement, and validate would be much lower than January of 2019 when we're planning the big merger. The company's motto in such matters is defense in depth. That means no longer waiting for the network to be attacked, rather adding a layer of protection in the cloud. This gap in our security exposes us to many vulnerabilities such as viruses, spyware, phishing expeditions in the cloud. We are now recommending to use WebRoot as a cyber intelligence tool. Not only will WebRoot address the above gaps, but also add another layer of data security as it filters inbound, outbound content, and also enables business as it enforces the company's internet use policy. In order to make an informed decision, the total cost of ownership was also calculated based on 3 components, namely physical hardware cost, operating costs, and personal costs. Physical hardware costs and personal costs would be minimal, as WebRoot is a SaaS, software as an application, without any hardware, and it's based on machine learning algorithms, so there's no specific cost of personnel. The operational costs are dependent on usage. As the company scales, the cost will increase 5 to 7% in the next 5 years. The current cost for 4,000 employees is about $3,400 per year. This is much lower compared to other tools in the market because WebRoot's vice president was the CISO of the San Diego County. So there's a personal investment in their leadership to help companies based out of San Diego. Due to the nature of information security, there's no exact price amount that can be placed on the return as an investment. However, securing the cloud infrastructure is key, as security breaches are always in the news. Our former competitors overlooked this importance, and with the recent iCloud hack, they were forced to dissolve their company entirely. Keeping the realities of breaches in mind, along with the bright future of the company, it is my humble suggestion that we take an active step in securing our cloud infrastructure. Webroot, though is just one of the options, is my suggested option based on their reputation, pricing, and the fact that they're on the frontier of incorporating machine learning into their solutions. This almost dissolves the human error factor almost completely. To lower the residual risk, user training would also be implemented through the company starting the fourth quarter of 2018. A markup sheet with the important numbers and concepts have been provided to you. I urge you to review our plan and agree to implement it, as time is of the essence. Thank you. I will now take questions.